Welcome, 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 friends. We are here to read, to fight, to live another day. Oh, Danny, you're there. Johnny on the spot. How the hell are you? I'm good. We're gonna do your story today, so I hope you're excited. Um, or at least happy that we're doing it. So we're gonna start with your story since you popped into the chat. Might as well just tell you. I think, yeah, is it a two-parter? Because I think the plan's to read both parts, unless for some reason the first part is just so insane that we have to sit on it for a while. Which uh would be cool, but doesn't have to happen. I know a lot of stories that part one is just laying the groundwork for what goes on later. So but I'm excited. So we're gonna do that, and then we're just gonna jump right into part 42 of Mr. Americana. We've done it before. We're doing it again. How exciting! Cause yeah, I've just been craving some more Mr. Americana in my life. I've read parts of it off stream. I don't remember exactly where I read to on stream. But it's such a beautiful, disjointed story, anyways, that I figure we can just kind of hop in and figure it out as we go, because that's what we've had to do kind of the entire time. And yeah, and I was reading, some of the parts right before this, and it seemed like maybe part 42 might be a good place to just jump in for some people who aren't familiar with this series. I of course will lay the backstory as it comes up, and for the other parts that we need to know. um but yeah, it's nervous and excited, lol, but always happy to catch a live, though. Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here. I know it's late. I hope that it's not too late for you, or if it yeah, I hope you can hang around at least while we read your story, but no worries if you got to go to bed or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there have been days where I've streamed more during the day. But it just kind of doesn't work out as often for me, cuz I normally sleep during the day. So, yeah, I feel if I knew that like it was going to be a great stream, like lots of live people in the chat and then lots of views afterwards, like I would try to stream at a certain time, but it honestly doesn't even really seem to help me. Like, I feel like my streams do just as well if they're in the middle of the night as opposed to like 6 p.m. or whatever. So, anyways, that doesn't really matter. The only other thing I wanted to say, and I guess I'll bring up, I don't know, because we're not going to watch the trailer. I think we've already watched it on my stream, but just I will give my thoughts with no spoilers on the back rooms, which I saw Friday night, basically last night, for me. And if I have one message, whatever, people say online, is the back room is it worth the hype? Is it, does it live up to the hype? Is it, they say things like, or I've seen some videos like Moist Critical made like a video like the Backrooms Hate Explained. I haven't even watched it yet because I don't care. My response to all of that is go see the fucking movie. It was great. It was awesome. It was, I think, even more what it needed to be than what I would have liked. Like, I would have liked if it was even heavier on the lore and the async and the and like pushed that story along a little bit more. And I assumed that, yeah, the movie would be primarily a story about Clark and this therapist and like their trauma and trials and how that they bring that into the backrooms and how it affects the backrooms, and that's what it was. But yeah, I loved it, and I think for a regular audience, like for a person who's not even familiar with the YouTube series, like for people who haven't seen the YouTube series, I think it will be even better. I think that they will like it more. I think it's a great entry point for people into the series, and then you can go back and watch the YouTube videos. I would have loved that, because right now I feel like I'm starved for, I mean, I just got to see the movie, so I love that, but I feel like I'm starved for more backrooms content. Like, I want to know what happens next, right? I want to know, how async ultimately fails or doesn't fail to explore and catalog and integrate the backroom. So that is just my, like, if I had a complaint or anything about it, it is just that I feel like it did such a good job of just introducing people to the concept and the whatever, that it just makes me hungry for more. As somebody who's watched, Wendigoon's video on it and watched, most of the content. But I think, so now I think with the context of the movie and everything, I think I am going to just go back and watch the whole series from start to finish, because why the hell not? And yeah, that'll be really fun. So, but I mean, it is totally worth it. It's worth it as a standalone horror movie. Like, is it scary? Yes. Does it do a lot of different things than traditional, like Lee Cronin's The Mummy? Yes. It is going to be a breath of fresh air in terms of like your typical horror or Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Like, one of the things I respect the most about the Backrooms, just as a whole, as a series, is how scary it manages to be without using like intense just darkness. I feel like so many horror movies, like, they just use really dark sets and everything to set the mood. And I mean, the Backrooms manages to be just as horrifying without all that. I mean, there is some darker shots at some part where there's like mystery and stuff, don't get me wrong, but it yeah, it was awesome. Like, I loved the still lifes and what they did with the still lifes in the movies, and I loved the all the found footage, like, parts of it, which there were two to my like recollection, but both of those I felt like were just, I mean, they were better than the YouTube videos, but they would fit just as a single standalone YouTube videos. Like, if he had just posted those two found footage scenes on his YouTube channel, those would totally work in the context of the entire series. Like, they're true to the VHS, quality and all that stuff. And they're just awesome. They were so cool. Like, I loved the start, and I loved the whole found footage of Clark exploring the complex, and I just think it was so well done from start to finish. And yeah, I think that the Backrooms, like, obviously it's a hit. It's doing well at the box office and all that stuff, but I think what is cool about it, and granted, it's not Kane Parsons' concept, but I think what is so cool about it is that for so long it's been like everything in horror has already been done before. And to me, like, although there are parts that you could say, well, yeah, but this creature kind of looks like this thing from this other movie, so you could say it could be done. It's been done before, but I feel like as a whole, this whole concept and just everything else is so fresh and so different from the type of horror movies that have been made in the past 10, 15 years even, that it's just awesome. Like, I'm just thoroughly stoked. I think it's very well done. Like, the set and everything is amazing, and that really brought it to life. But I just think that it takes somebody like Kane, who has a deep mythology built and like that deep lore, to kind of create something totally new in the world of horror. Like, we need that person that has like that Tolkien-esque or that George R. Martin brain, where they have like backstories for everything and subplots, and they have like, they would create entire languages. Like, who knows, maybe at some point there's going to be a language that the still life speak, and it's going to be completely new and different. And that's kind of what I'm saying, is that, like, I think audiences and stuff have gotten to a place where simplicity and simple concepts still are good, but I think people want to be able to have a deep lore surrounding something if they can. It's always better to have that for the people who want to dig into it and for the people who want to find the Easter eggs and find the hidden meanings. And so I'm just really excited. I loved it. Go see it. That is my thoughts on the Backrooms. I am curious. It's in the thumbnail for this part. I think they call it the Entity, because there's Still Lifes and then there's the Entity. I am curious if in future iterations or like in the series, if A24 and Kane end up making a series after that, if this entity that people said was like, the mold or whatever coming to life, or maybe the series even says that. I'm not sure. That's why I need to rewatch everything again. I'm curious to see how that interacts with the maybe more evolved versions of the still lifes that we got in the movie. But that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to spoil too much. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I am just very very curious. Yeah, well, Kane says that ideally, that is what he said. He's like, ideally, he would want to do maybe like a limited series on like, HBO or something. A24 like, does shows too, obviously, but he would want to do like some sort of a limited series that he feels like that would be the best way to tell the story he wants to tell, to tie the everything together, from the YouTube to now the movie to what happens after. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I think A24 might try to convince him to just do another movie with at least some of it, because the first one was such a smash. But I just don't know. Or maybe they'll be like, yeah, no, make a series, dope series. Having a hit series in this day and age, yes, you don't make the money that you would make at the box office from like a movie, but to me, like, when there's a hit series like in the zeitgeist, it's more impactful almost than like a hit movie. It has more staying power and stuff. So I'm curious to see what comes out of it. And yeah, I'm also curious to just dive back in and rewatch. Rewatch all the stuff for myself, and then just watch like maybe a few videos about, like, I'm not so much interested in theories anymore. Like, I think everyone should have their own theories and it's fun to discuss with people, but like, I'm more interested in just the straight up timeline of all the events now, because so much has happened on the YouTube series and now with the movie, that like that is where I just want to get the timeline down really well in my head so that when the movie comes out and I rewatch it, or so that when whatever comes out in the future, I really know what is going on or what is about to happen in this timeline. Like, is this before the earthquakes or is this after the, because there's like earthquakes at a certain point. Is this before the one guy, you know, gets lost from his group? I forget his name. His name might be Peter, I think. Anyways, but yeah, and just getting more into like who is Ivan Beck, because the series has mentioned him. We know he's like the hero and also the villain of the series, but it's like, who is Ivan Beck and how closely, like, is he the creator of the backrooms in terms of like, is it his experiment and his mind that was the first one to to influence and create the backrooms? Because we know that now from the movie we're pretty aware that people who enter the backrooms like copies stuff from their life, like their house, their, the furniture store, whatever. We know that now from the movie fairly like certainly. And so I'm curious if like, if Ivan Beck ever even went into the backrooms, or if he just created the company that ultimately found the technology that opened the portal. I don't know. I think it's kind of hinted at that maybe he was aware that this world existed, and I'm like, well, how did he know? Did he fall through a natural, like, null zone or whatever? I don't know, but anyways, very cool. I'm very excited. It was great. Go see it. Go see it in theaters and then watch it when it comes to streaming. Watch it both. Lee Cronin's the Ivan, exactly. I'm ready for Lee Cronin's the Ivan for sure. The Ivan Beck Drogo, and I instantly saw on Reddit that they even snuck Ivan Beck's name into the list of thank yous. Like, special thanks to at the end of the credits, which obviously is very fun. And then it kind of gives me the idea. I'm like, wait, is there a real Ivan Beck? Is he like, I'm like, is he from reality? And they just, made a parallel Ivan Beck for this universe. I don't know. Anyways, I just thought that was a funny little wink to it. But anyways, switching gears, or not fully switching gears, but getting into story mode. The day the statue left is gonna be our first story. Danny, are you ready? Cause I'm ready. Here, actually, I do want to see. I'm gonna pull part 2 up real quick, just so I know kind of how long. Okay. Ooh, and I think I maybe got a Reddit message too, or yeah, which for me is exciting because I ask a lot of people. I ultimately end up messaging a lot of people for permission to do X, Y, and Z, and so oh no, it wasn't that. Okay, perfect, cool. All right. The day the statue left. You could see it from almost anywhere in town. Nearly 15 feet tall, impossible to miss. Sorry, zooming on this laptop is so hard, and it's like a fine line between. There we go. Impossible to miss, especially on my morning walks. It was like a beacon, drawing you in towards the center of town. Wings that peaked over trees hung as if exhausted. Wings that peeked over trees hung as if exhausted. A weary face carved in exquisite detail, long, strained marble arms holding a golden vase that poured water into 2 cups, held by a small child who sat at its feet. Their faces looked joyful and bright in comparison. They are holding out small cups until they spill into the small pool below. So not only is this a statue, this is a fountain, which I think is an important kind of distinction. Because fountains, I mean, yes, plenty of fountains are kind of statues in and of themselves. I mean, they have some sort of a thing that takes the water up, and so they're like a fountain's form can be statuesque, right? But I think it's important because fountains have the idea of like making a wish and like all these other, um, supernatural kind of connotations to them. Or you drink from like the fountain of youth or you know what I mean? So yeah, I just think that it's interesting that we knew this story's going to be about a statue, right? The day the statue left, but we didn't know it's going to be about a statue that is also a fountain, because now I'm going to be curious, like, did the whole thing just disappear? Or did the main, like the top part, the things with the wings, is that what left? And maybe the children are still there waiting for the water in their cups, like it'll be kind of interesting to see, because I think that has ramifications from like just a symbolism perspective, like the children holding out small cups could be kind of representative of humanity, and this could kind of be like some sort of angelic or supernatural being that is leaving humanity, is abandoning us. And so it's kind of like, were we sitting there with our cups just always expecting the water to flow, only to have it one day shut off? It's cool. I like I wouldn't know all this if I didn't know the title. So the title definitely does give a little bit away, but it's like knowing that and then starting with a description of the fountain of the statue is just fun, because I already get to wonder what it all represents, and not only what what did it represent to the town and to the people who like built it or created it, like the sculptor, the whatever, like what does that mean, but then what does it mean in the context of the story, and are those two things going to be similar, or are they going to be completely different? Like maybe the statue is going to be some evil entity that like gains sentience and like starts hunting people. We don't know, right? So it's interesting to see, and I think the description of it is cool. I would be curious to see if there's a fountain like this in real life, or if it was inspired by a real statue, so to speak. Statues are fun. I like even in small towns, like I think just walking down a downtown of like just a small little town, provided they have any statues, it's like I always like to stop and look, even if it's oh, this is our town founder that no one's ever heard of, or that you've only ever heard of if you've lived in that town. Like I like it. I think it's cool. I think that it's just fun. It's fun to look, and even like statues that aren't of people, right? Just of other things, or of like whatever amorphic, like just shapes, and stuff like that. I always find interesting, uh, just for a number of reasons. There's like the bean in Chicago. It's like that big. I forget what it's even called, but it's just that big bean looking thing. And yeah, I forget the significance of that or why, but even that is kind of fun, even though it's so simple. Yeah. Yeah, pillar. Well, and that's Yeah, exactly right, Dan. I mean, I think they can be like pillars for the community, something easy to identify. Yeah, and like I just said about the bean, it's like I know that's in Chicago. I don't know much else about Chicago. I've never been there, but if I see that bean on like a movie or something, I'm like, oh, they're in Chicago. Um, Same with this statue. Here. Uh, This is probably the most famous statue of the town I grew up in. And this, it's on the corner, but exactly right in terms of the whatever the most, like, it's like a pillar of the community. Like this in the town I grew up in, it was a fairly small town. Everyone knew the dog downtown. It was on the corner of like Main Street and First Street. It's right in front of the Starbucks. Everybody walked by this dog, knew where it was at. Kids would go sit on it and take pictures. It was just always a famous sculpture, just even for my town. And although it's a cool sculpture, and I'm like, I love it. I understand how other people there are just like, oh yeah, it's cute. But to me, I'm like, oh, this represents home. This represents so much. Um, like my childhood, a million things that I can't even go into all of it right now because it would just take too long to explain. But so yeah, I totally see what you mean. Yeah, or if you're meeting up with somebody and you can't, and they're like, well, I'm down by blah 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 by Barnes and Noble, or I'm down by this coffee shop or that restaurant. It's like, well, just meet me at the dog. Like people will say things like that. Same with this. Yeah, it's a point of reference. So if you get lost, sure, but I think and especially with tall, big statues, I think that's true. Like, and obviously in other countries and stuff, like in Italy, I know a lot of people are like, meet me by this statue because it's it's hard to find street names or whatever else. So it's just easier to like Google where this specific statue is and meet there. So I think it's a totally for sure like that. But also, I think, yeah, the bigger it is, the more it's kind of like a sentry, it kind of just watches over everything. So because of that, because of the idea of a statue being like a person or having some sort of sentience, it's like it sees everything, it knows the town. So not only do you know where it is and do you use it to help you if you get lost, but there's also kind of this sense that like it knows you, too, which is kind of cool, which I think is maybe why it's good. I think it was good to use a statue in a horror story or just in a story in general. I think you know it makes sense. There's a lot of weight to it, but let's continue. I don't want to ramble too long. If you had a keen eye for art, you could tell the smaller ones were sculpted by a different artist. Okay, interesting. Though they did their best to match the original piece. So that already we're getting a sense that um By the smaller ones, are we saying the children, or are we saying? So the fact that they were added on, um, is interesting. That already separates it and explains that I do think our bigger bird creature statue is just going to be the one that leaves, and there's going to be the little other pieces still there. It's the sort of thing that once noticed can't be unseen. Like in this grand, expensive project, someone thought, this looks too somber. Throw some kids in. Engraved at the base, it read, in remembrance of Rufus Angelus, pouring onto others from which he did not have. Interesting. So it's like he gave to others things that he didn't have, which already I'm like, interesting. It was the main landmark in the town. You could see kids, teens, and adults meet up at that very spot before heading off to do whatever. Over time, I became accustomed to seeing it. So accustomed, in fact, that this morning I didn't notice. When I walked into the coffee shop and saw Mark, I didn't notice. In fact, I didn't notice until he brought it up to me in passing. Good morning, stranger, I said as I walked in. The scent of coffee beans and freshly baked muffins filled the air. Lo-fi music played quietly in the background. The yellow lights were slightly dim, making you feel warm and welcomed the moment you stepped in. Mark was looking out the large windows as birds flew by, brows furrowed. He wasn't his cheery, happy self. A slight frown sat on his face as he looked across the street towards the park. He snapped out of it when he noticed me standing in front of him. There she is, my favorite customer, he said, giving me a smile. It didn't quite reach his eyes. I rolled my eyes. Sure. I bet you say that to all your customers. He reached over, handing me my cocoa. Only the ones that are up this early, he said with a shrug. Dad's having me try a new recipe for the croissants. Oh wait. Oh no, sorry. I thought this was this is still Mark, I believe. Yeah. Cuz maybe Mark's like the younger, like the son that works mornings, whereas the dad's like the owner. Okay. Dad's having me try a new recipe for the croissants. Here, try on the house, he said, sliding one over to me as I paid for my drink. Already, this seems like the best coffee shop ever, if only because they're not like, oh, $8 for a croissant? Here, try it. It's brand new. It's pistachio and mint. You're going to love it. You're like, oh, God. $8 for, and they're like, it's the only croissant we have right now. You're like, you don't just have like a plain like butter. They're like, no, pistachio and mint only. Oh God, we were in Fort Collins, and which in Colorado, like if you're not from Colorado, you're not gonna know what that means. But if you are from Colorado, you'll know why I'm like, it's a very hipstery area, right? It's got a college, a big college, and in a lot of ways that's good. I like that. I like when, you know, like downtowns and stuff have a lot of young, like whatever cool stuff going on. But so annoying, we went, and this coffee shop wasn't downtown, but we were getting tattoos in Fort Collins. Shout out Solana Tattoo. And we ended up getting, like, we just wanted like a regular like black coffee, like basically just like a coffee with cream, you know, just like a vanilla y latte, you know, was basically all we wanted. And they were like, well, the closest thing we're going to have is the vanilla, whatever. And we got it. And it didn't even really taste that much like coffee. Like it kind of did, but it also was like, what the hell? And then we got like mochi rice, like cake things, which they were an interesting texture, but they just didn't have a lot of flavor. Like it was just one of these things, and it was like, so that'll be $25 for one coffee, a glass of water, which is what I got, and these four little like kind of like donut holes, but made with rice. And yeah, it was just one of these things where I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it just was the essence of like a hipster coffee shop that, you know, we just wanted a sweet, or, you know, my wife, she just wanted like a sweet, you know, creamy coffee that's like vanilla-y, like the Starbucks, the glass one that you get that's just vanilla latte that you can buy in any gas station. Like she just wanted a version of that and they could not do it, you know. Dubai chocolate and jam, that'll be $10. Exactly. And that's what I mean by like, oh, it's a new croissant. You know, we're making a new croissant recipe. It's mint and pistachio, which you're like, maybe a pistachio croissant would be good, or maybe like a mint chocolate would be okay, but it's like two things that you just do not want on your croissant, and you're like, well, I'll just take a regular one, and they're like, we don't have any regular ones, only the new kind, and it's $12, you know, and you're like, fucking great. I picked it up. So the fact that she got one for free from her barista friend here already makes me be like, this is a cool mom and pop coffee shop, you know. This isn't a fucking uppity what up, Harvey? Uh this isn't an uppity bullshit coffee shop. Um Pleasure to have you here, Harvey. This is maybe the first time ever when both stories, well, probably not, but both stories that I'm planning on reading, both authors are in the chat. That's pretty cool. I think that, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think that goes to show that, you know, I have good, I don't know, whatever relationships with the authors. They come back after I read their stories. And that makes me happy because ultimately I want to be friends with everyone whose story I read. But I also just want people to come back to hear other people's stories too. So that's awesome. A shout out to Harvey the Human Cigarette for be here, and Danny from Black Creek, which I do notice now, Danny, that your thing, Black Creek Radio, which is, I don't know, the universe in which all your stories take place, or maybe that's just the page that you created for all your stories. We'll see. But that's cool. I'm now realizing that your name is Danny from Black Creek, so I enjoy that. I enjoy the congruity between, you know. Sliding as I paid for my drink. I picked it up and it smelled heavenly. The second I took a bite, I could feel it melt in my mouth. This is so fucking good. Your dad is a baking genius, I said, taking another bite. Sometimes it pays to be up at the ass crack of dawn. Mark gave a half-hearted laugh as he looked out the window again. Yo, you good? I asked, my eyes. Yo, you good? I asked, my eyes to follow his to see nothing but an empty street. So I think there's a little bit of a typo here. I'm not quite sure what it is, but like my eyes went to follow his or something like that. I don't know. Yo, you good? I asked. Uh I asked, and there probably a comma there too. My eyes to follow his to see nothing but an empty street. He didn't say anything for a moment. Just just kept looking out the window. Hello, Earth to Mark, I said, snapping my fingers in his face. He looked back at me, slightly annoyed. Look outside. Notice anything? I looked at him for a moment, giving him a confused stare, then looked outside. I see some parked cars, a nice sunrise. I looked back at him. Look at the park, genius. Notice anything? He said, pointing toward the park. My eyes followed. I looked out the window again, except this time, when I looked at the park, I noticed it. Well, I noticed what was missing. It's not there, I said aloud. Yeah, he responded. I could feel him standing behind me now. We kept looking out the window as if waiting for any given amount of we kept looking out the window as if waiting for any given amount of time would bring it back. So that's a little clunky, the phrasing of that too. I think it should be like, we kept looking out the window as if waiting. I think just to say as if waiting for any, or maybe it's not clunky. I don't know. I think, yeah. I think, yeah, just as if waiting for any amount of time would bring it back. I think any given amount of time just kind of threw me off, but I guess there's nothing wrong with it. But so far, I'm enjoying this. So far, I'm like, I like that we don't really know how small the town or city is yet, but we can assume that if it's a statue that most people could see from town because it was tall enough and it was in the middle of the park in the middle of town. I like that, you know, it's like they just woke up one morning and it was gone. And it's not like, of course, we got that line about like, this is who the statue's for, Angel something, which, you know, I did catch that, Rufus and Jealous, and then 1858 to 1897, which pretty old, you know, like so we can assume it's an older town, and we get this thing, but it's not like it really went into deep like history as to who Rufus and Jealous was or whatever. It's not like it was like he was a cursed blah 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 witch, you know, doctor who fought with Native American, you know, something like that, where I think certainly, like, you know, if you look into any statues of old people of a town, or what, you know, what towns are named after, oftentimes it's like we find these crazy stories of these like early settlers, like, you know, getting murdered by Native Americans or vice versa, murdering a bunch of you know, indigenous people and stuff like that. And so I think it would have been very easy to like slide in some really ominous backstory right here, but I like that it's just keeping it kind of ambiguous, because maybe to some people they might know the history, but to most people this is just the statue that is in the center of their town that to them defines and, you know, adds the charm that is their town, but it's not something that they really read into much deeper, you know, than that other, you know, until maybe it disappears. And so I like that, boom, like we get a brief description of the statue. We get the day she's walking into the coffee shop. You know, the barista's all distracted by noticing that it's gone, and then our main character notices too. I think that that's very fun, and I think that yeah, I think some writers or whatever might have been more heavy-handed, like I was saying, with like adding immediately a backstory for the statue and all that stuff. But I like this approach, and I like the notes about, well, they added these kids and stuff later on to make it because they thought it looked too whatever dark or mysterious or weird or whatever, so they were trying to make it look a little bit more family friendly or whatever. And like, so we get those little notes and stuff about that. So like maybe there is some indication that some people found this statue creepy, but that's really all we get. And I think that is, it's doing a good job of making me interested in what the backstory is rather than just giving it to me right at the beginning, and I appreciate that. I think it was a good whatever writing choice, artistic choice to be like, I'll just explain the statue as it kind of exists to everyone living in the town at the time it went missing, not like a history lesson or other shit, but just kind of simple. Yeah. Well, you see, the statue was built on an old Native American burial ground. Oh, that road there. Well, you see, the cemetery was built on a Chippewa burial ground. Or maybe it's down that road there. All right. Let's get back to it. I always walk through the park to get here. It's a good shortcut, Like, we don't live far from here. I nodded along, interested in where he was going with this. Well, today I woke up late, so I was rushing my ass to get here. I know my dad owns the place, but you know how he's been lately. Anyways, while I was cutting through the park, I could have sworn it was there. I listened intently. I didn't understand why he was so worked up. Remember Nisi and Darius from high school? I nodded again. They're like the few other people who came around this early. So when they came in, they had asked me what happened to the statue. That's when I looked, and the statue was gone, I said, cutting him off. My eyes were glued to the empty spot in Angelus Park. I think so. When they pointed it out, something felt off, I guess. Honestly, I was confused. Well, obviously, I would have seen if that massive fucking thing was gone, but I didn't, he said. I don't know. I know it's silly, but I texted my brother, and he had no idea what I was talking about. Usually he knows everything that's going on. I don't know how to explain it, but I keep getting the feeling I wasn't supposed to notice in the first place, he said, looking over at me. That's creepy. I like that. And I like that note about I get the feeling that I was never supposed to even notice. Like some sort of magic. There was some sort of magic that when the statue disappeared, it like cast a spell on the town to be like, and everyone will like business as usual. Everyone will think that that nothing's changed. But then when the people pointed it out, he noticed, and so it's kind of ominous. Like now that he notices, is the statue going to come for him or something like that, right? And I just have to say, thus far, I really like the dialogue and stuff between them. It just seems genuine, and I like Mark as like a kind of, I don't think we know enough about our narrator, about our protagonist yet, our main character. But I like him as kind of like, he works at this coffee shop, so he's like, he sees it every day. So if something was off or was changing with it, or if there was construction going on, it's like he would have seen something, and he's the one who instantly is like kind of keying into maybe the supernatural nature of this, that it wasn't just like, oh, some kids stole it in the night, or they took it down, and City Hall took it down hush hush because it was discovered that this guy was like a old slave owner or something. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes cities do that, where like quietly they'll change a landmark or something because they don't want their citizens to get all riled up in a fuss. But I think already Mark's realizing that this is something else. This is something more odd. Very cool. Very, very fun. He said, but I keep getting the feeling that I wasn't supposed to notice it in the first place, he said, looking over at me. As I listened to him, flashes of my walk this morning forced their way back into my head. I mean, sure, it's not like I could always see it, especially if I was leaving from home. But at the bare minimum, I could see the top of the statue's head while I walked towards town. This time, I didn't. I felt my stomach drop, logically. I'm aware that this is a bit of an overreaction, but this felt primal. Like turning the lights off late at night and then running up the stairs. Unexplainable, but understandable. Seeing how worked up he was, I kept Mark company until customers started coming in. I told him I'd text him later and make sure he was okay. See, and now I like that too. I like that explanation of the stomach dropping, and how it, it felt like, yeah, because I know people as adults that are like, they run up the stairs when it's dark, or they, all sorts of things, or like people with OCD where you'll see them like tap a light switch before they turn it off or after they turn it on. They have to, like, we all have our rituals and our stuff that we do that maybe isn't, strictly speaking, the most logical or the most like normal thing ever, but they keep us safe. And now the fact that her stomach is dropping, or that it's affecting both Mark and her in this way, it's keying into that superstition, right? I think it's a smart, well written kind of way of just being like, it gave me a funny feeling. I think a lot of stories, we'll have a Jeff the Killer where it's like, I had a feeling, and it was a feeling, you know what I mean? And this is a much more like eloquent, good way of saying, and it's not the feeling that they're going to murder someone. I'm not saying that that's the feeling that they're having, but I'm saying a lot of times a writer will just say, my stomach dropped, and kind of leave it at that, and leave it at like, it felt wrong, it felt off, they'll kind of just leave it with some general kind of statement like that. But I like the specific relating it to the running up the stairs after you turn a light off at night. That sort of superstition or ritual. I like that. It's very good so far, Danny. I'm bought in. I've been read in, and I've got out my checkbook, and now I'm bought in. Now you're gonna text Mark later. I guess we just need to know more about what our main character does, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, at this point, I would, I feel like I'd almost be like, should we like alert somebody? You know, should we tell like the police or, you know, the statue's fully missing. So, you know, that's, if nothing else, that seems like it should be, you know, it should be of concern to somebody. Maybe it's not like necessarily their problem, but, um, but I could understand being just kind of confused and like assume like having this feeling that something's off, but at the same time assuming that, well, we must have just missed something, or there must be something going on that we're not aware of, you know? So I could understand having that like hesitation to just be like, you know, to not just like be like, call 911 now, the statue's missing. We need to get the fucking FBI and the monuments men up in here, you know, from freaking World War II. We need to you know, we need to restart that special unit that, you know, got back stolen monuments from from the Nazis. We need to bring them back. Which is a good movie too, by the way. If anyone ever, you know, it's one of those World War II movies where it's like it's interesting, and then I don't know. I liked it for history, but also I felt like the characters in it were fun. You know, it was a I like the idea of a bunch of old dudes like going to war, but not for their country and to like for their ideals, but also because they love art. They're like, we love art too much to let, like, art is already suffering so much as a result of this war, and sure, it's maybe not as important as like human lives and stuff, but they're like we are going to war for the beautiful art that we love, you know. It's just something about that idea is fun to me. The town was slowly coming to life by the time I'd left. My eyes wandered off in the direction of the park. Curiosity got the better of me, and I crossed the street. The hairs on my arm stood as I walked over. The air felt thick, electric. I looked back at the cafe and saw Mark working away. I made my way over to the fountain. I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, it was gone. My eyes drifted to where it was supposed to be, my mind trying to fill in the blank space. 1,000 questions rose up as I looked at the platform. There wasn't as much as a scrape. The two kids sat in their spots holding their cups up to the air, but now there was nothing there to fill them. The park went eerily still. No breeze, no bird song. Everything felt slightly uncanny. The thick static air felt more pronounced as I walked around the pool. I put my hand on the cold marble, feeling the bumps of the engraved words. I wondered to myself how the fountain even worked. There wasn't even a hole to feed water into the statue. I think this is the wrong two. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it should just be TO, but I'm not 100% sure. Uh, there wasn't even a hole to feed water into the statue. Maybe they just turned it off last night, I thought out loud. Something they've never done. I was lost in thought when I heard a familiar voice from behind me. Ma'am, we need you to exit the premises. We're closing the park until further notice. I turned to see Mark's older brother, Deputy Caputo. Isn't Caputo I feel like Caputo's a name of a deputy in something else. Maybe it's like Orange is the New Black, or I don't know. I watch a lot of cop shit though, so that's not surprising. I turned to see Mark's older brother, Deputy Caputo. Sorry, Brandon. I'll get out of your hair, I said, walking past him. He cleared his throat. I'm in uniform. That's deputy to you, he said with a wink. I rolled my eyes. So is he offering her a ride too? Okay. The rest of my team is coming in a few minutes. Are you okay? Do you need a ride? I took a deep breath. Oh shit, she dated him. Okay. That's why. Okay, I see now. I see the weirdness. I took a deep breath. I really think it's best if we just keep our interactions to a minimum. You should go check on your brother, I responded while avoiding eye contact. Ah, shit. Already I'm getting the vibes that she's the protagonist that dated. She's always been better friends with Mark, and Mark's always been like the nicer, whatever, sweeter brother, but for some reason she dated Brandon, and he's the dick brother who was the more jockish one who became a cop. And so they dated like in high school or recently or something. But it's like, really, she dated him, but she doesn't know why, because she's always been closer with Mark, I don't know. That's so funny. I bet I did. I bet I did. Because it felt familiar, even me saying it. You read one of my other stories that featured this exact character for a few moments, and you said the same thing, Caputo. Okay, hell yeah. Well, I'm consistent then, right? At least I'm consistent. Um, uh, you should go check on your brother, I responded while avoiding eye contact. His smile faltered for a moment, but came back. Always nice to talk to you. He held my gaze momentarily. You're free to go, he said, as 3 more officers pulled up in their squad cars. When I got home, I fell into a deep yet restless sleep. A vast whiteness surrounded me from all over. I can't tell if I'm moving, but it felt like I was. I walked through a brightness so blinding, my mind is having a hard time deciphering what's up and what's down. After what felt like hours, my body felt drained and my feet and legs ached terribly. I wanted to stop. Oh, that's cool. Somebody, Colin Hellu? Uh, yes, congrats, Danny. Absolutely, on getting your story read by the likes of me. I want to. Oh, my. Okay, sorry. My body felt drained and my feet and legs ached terribly. I wanted to stop. I slowly realized my body wasn't my own. I had no choice but to keep going. As I kept moving, I saw the top of a head, then the tips of the wings. All was slowly coming into view the closer I walked. Each step makes the space around me shift into different shades of white. The air felt stiff, dry, and heavy, making breathing hard. A deep, low groan began to shake the space around me, followed by a labored breath. It was so loud it made everything in this vast nothingness shake. My body moved involuntarily as it followed the sound. The rest of the statue seemed to blink into existence, holding the same pose as it did at the park, except now it watches as I move towards it. Part of me knew it was always there, though, in the same way you know the sun is going to rise or the breeze is going to blow. It seemed to be tripling in size. It was almost impossible to make out its features. The rumbling continued, each breath so loud it burst my eardrums. Warm streams of blood began running down my neck. I tried to put my hands over them, but nothing could block out the sound. When I finally came to a stop, I was in awe as it towered over me. I couldn't help but stare, and slowly its face began to come close, filling my vision, expanding beyond belief. It came closer and closer, yet its body stood still. Its breathing reverberates in my head, my mind unable to adjust to the statue's monolithic size. Somehow, just as I could tell the statue had always been there, I could tell I wasn't alone. It looked down at me, its gargantuan eye hovered over me for a moment before slowly enclosing me within its carved out pupil. I felt myself in awe, seeing every chip and chisel mark in unbelievable detail. I could feel my body vibrating as its loud breathing and labored gasp bounced off the stone and onto my body like the lashing of whips. I didn't care anymore. I was in awe, astounded by something so terrifying could be so beautiful. I felt my skin start to pop and burst, unable to bear the brunt of the vibrations hitting my body. Dark black puffs of what should have been blood shot out of my arms, chest, and legs. The sound penetrated, hitting every inch of my body with a loud crack. I knew it should hurt. I knew I should scream and cry, but I felt myself feel almost joyous in my pain. I reached out my arm, watching the stringy bits of loose skin dangle from it. Bits of the dark substance and meat barely hung on before falling off my arms and legs, hitting the ground with a barely audible squelch. The air began to feel chalky and musty. It filled my nostrils like an intoxicating gas. My hand touched the cold stone, smearing the black ichor within its eye as I began using my body to paint with fervor. Sorry. So that was a very cool sequence. The cold stone smearing black ichor within its eye. Interesting. So she begins to paint. Like in the dream, within the eye, she gets sucked into its eye. All her skin falls off. She's sort of it's almost like she's becoming this angel, this statue of this angel, or if it's like consuming her, or they're becoming one. Like maybe, like how like in Supernatural, there's like the angels, but they have vessels on earth. It's like in order to walk on earth, they need to, the same way demons, like that's why demons ultimately, are said to possess people, is because they're fallen angels. And so in order to walk on earth, they need to, and it's the same sort of a thing with a heavenly being. And this almost seems like, I would argue, although it is terrifying and still creepy, I would almost argue that maybe it is a heavenly or not a straight up nefarious being, because it's not like it really did anything other than she walked up to it and then it like basically consumed her with its eye. But it seemed like the whole time it was like she didn't have a choice, but it wasn't this horrible sensation where she was like, no, stop, please. Every moment of it, it was like, it was like I was in pain, but I loved it, So very interesting, cool sequence. I don't know if I've ever liked a dream sequence so much in a story. This kicked ass, because I forget kind of how it starts, but I fell into a deep yet restless sleep. Yeah, so it's very clear from the beginning that it's like I was asleep, which I kind of like if you're going to do a dream sequence. It's like a lot of times people will just be like, she would have just been walking home and all of a sudden she saw the angel and then it would have, oh, she wakes up at the very end, but I kind of like because it told me it was a dream that it was, and then it also made everything that was happening to me make sense, but also be like, it's cool in the surrealist nature of it, and it makes sense because we know it's in a dream. And then it also makes me wonder that, like, oh, well, maybe this is a dream, but maybe this is what's happening to her. Maybe she is being, like, possessed by this angel, or vice versa, or what, we don't know yet, right? Yeah, so I just like it. I just, it's just a very, very cool sequence. I woke up with a gasp, heart thumping rapidly in my chest. I was cold and shaking. My legs and arms felt sore and heavy. I checked my phone. I had a bunch of missed calls from my parents, my job, and even a few from Mark, which was odd. When I checked the date, I realized I'd been asleep for 4 days. My head was spinning. That's when I got another text from Mark. Yeah, I think she's definitely possessed, right? I think we have to, at this point, be like, yeah. Because to sleep for 4 days is already such a... I don't know. It's just, it's something that, it's just indicative of a transformation, isn't it? Like this whole idea that she just fell asleep, fell into this deep, restless sleep. And then when she wakes up, it's 4 days later, like that. Yeah. I'm leaning pretty much into that she's been possessed by an angel, and we're gonna get a kind of maybe like benevolent horror story out of this, where not only was the whole part of the possession horrifying, but then also I wonder if, like, it's gonna be about like the horror of an angel using you maybe for whatever angels do on earth. I don't know. Or maybe she's gonna have to fight, you know, devilish forces as this possessed angel creature. Very interesting. Um, my head was spinning. That's when I got another text from Mark. Hey, I'm sorry to keep texting you, but can you meet me at the coffee shop tomorrow? It's very important. I stared at my phone for a second. Yeah, just let me know the time, I shot back. By the time I got there, the shop had closed for the day. I sat with Mark watching as he finished up his last few tasks. Sorry, I wasn't trying to ignore you. I'm done now. He looked so tired, his eyes were big and puffy. Had a long day? I asked. He sighed. Well, my dad really can't run the shop anymore, so I come in and out as needed. Opening, closing, managing. At this point, I do it all. Thanks for coming through, he said with a smile. I'm just waiting for the others to get here, he said, walking around the counter and heating up some coffee. Others? I asked. As if on cue, Darius and Nisi knocked on the door, looking equally as exhausted as the rest of us. Hey guys, Mark said with a tired smile. Oh, hey guys, Mark said with a tired smile. After some polite conversation and leftover donuts, Mark held up a now half-empty coffee pot, pouring some into a cup. I'm glad y'all came. I don't know how to explain this, but I have a feeling that you guys will understand. He cleared his throat. I've been having these dreams. Weird, fucked up dreams. They feel so real, though, and I've been having problems sleeping. It's not just me, either. My brother has been having issues sleeping at night. The past few days, he's woken up screaming at weird hours or sleepwalking. I told him to come with me tonight, but he's on duty. Each word was reluctant and measured. This all started a night or two after the statue disappeared. His face was red, unsure if it was a good idea or if he was even making any sense. Why would we? Asked Darius. What? Hold on. So I'm a little confused why Darius is asking why would we? Is he saying why would we come? Or is he, because like I understand all this of everything Mark just said. Um but I'm a little confused what Darius means by why would we. I assume it's why would we come, but he's there, so it's kind of a weird question. I don't know. I feel like the question should maybe be like, "What's this about, Mark?" Or so why are we here? Sort of a thing, maybe. But yeah, it's just a thought. We'll see the rest of the conversation. Uh, because Mark said, trailing off, in my dream last night, I saw you, all of you, he continued. I was looking at it. The face is engraved in my mind now. That face, I was looking at it. That face is engraved in my mind now. He sounded so serious. I could also see all of us standing around it. Rowan in front, Nisi on the left, you to the right, and I was behind. This thing, it was fucking huge. I couldn't even make out the top of it. And it was covering Rowan and Darius with its shadow. It turned his head towards me. It was looking at you. I knew what he was talking about, yet it felt weird to admit it out loud. Nisi's gaze shifted to behind me. Darius was uncomfortable, unable to find a good position to sit in, which let me know they knew what Mark was talking about too. So I spoke up. I told them all about my dream, the moments that matched with Mark's. Mark looked relieved. Darius looked over at Nisi before he spoke. He refused to look at him. We have two. Darius cleared his throat. She's worse than me. She can't sleep more than 30 minutes at a time. She keeps waking up screaming or walking to the corners of the room in her sleep, he said, looking over at her. She didn't respond. Mark looked at her too. Like my brother. Darius nodded. At first I didn't believe her, but then I started getting them too. The dreams, that is. I don't know. I haven't slept a full night in days. To be honest, I can barely close my eyes, he said. Are your dreams similar to ours? I asked. He sighed, nodding his head. I could tell he was exhausted but relieved to know he wasn't alone. I looked over at Nisi, waiting for her to interject, but she didn't say anything, zoned out on whatever was on the wall behind me. I went to turn around. I wanted to see what she was looking at, but she grabbed my arm, quickly gripping it tightly. I looked over at Darius, but she seemed as confused as I was. Don't turn around. Not yet, she said, squeezing my arm even tighter. I looked at her for a moment. I don't know if it was the tiredness or the possibility of a shared delusion, but I listened. I let her warm hand grip me as she looked over at Mark. Dude, just trust me, she said. Quiet rumbles started from underground. The vibration went up my legs to my brain. It started feeling fuzzy. My eyes vibrated in my head as the cafe started shaking. The intensity is growing by the second. The chairs were stacked onto The chairs that were stacked onto the table started falling with loud bangs all around us, and the coffee pots were falling off the counters, crashing on the ground, shattering into pieces. The ceiling lights quickly blinked on and off, the bulbs bursting, then leaving us in darkness. The decorations were swaying, crashing, and breaking into one another. It was suddenly hard to breathe. I looked over at everyone. "What the fuck is going on?" I asked, my voice shaking as Mark grabbed me and dragged me under the table. Nisi and Darius are joining us shortly after. We were all wide awake now. As the rumbling continued, pieces of the ceiling crashed onto the table above us, shattering loudly. Bits of the tile hit us as it crashed down thunderously. As quickly as it had started, it stopped. It got quiet all over again. Yet this was a different silence. No humming of the lights of the fridge, no faint indie pop playing in the background, no sounds of cars passing outside, just silence. We all held our breath. I felt myself shaking. Something told me this wasn't the end. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck begging me to get out of there. I was alert, but the vibration in my head made it hard to think. It became more and more intense, making my head feel like I was going to explode. Panic set in. I had to get out of here, and somewhere safe before this building crashes down on us. I ran out from under the table to make my way back out of the shop. Mark tried to grab my hand, but I ran. I heard footsteps behind me as I made it to the door. I hadn't even realized I was looking at the ground until I reached for the door. Pressed right up against the glass was a massive marble face looking in the shop, looking at me. Oh shit! Its face covered every inch of the windows as it peered in. It seemed to glow in the dark. Its tired, miserable face covered every inch of the outside. I watched as its mouth slowly began to slide open. I took a step back, my head pounding so hard I couldn't see. I could feel the veins in my eyes about to explode as my mouth fully opened, and I saw rows and rows of human teeth. "Look behind you," said a labored, breathy whisper that carried the weight of 1,000 souls. I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I knew it wasn't Mark. I knew it was the statue. Its massive mouth kept sliding down before me. The sound of marble sliding on marble was shaking the ground of the coffee shop yet again, moving down until its jaw was barely holding on. Thousands of voices joined in wailing, crying, screaming at me, demanding that I either look behind me or walk through the door. I couldn't hear the others, and I refused to turn around, no matter how scared I was. I tried making sense of what's going on, but I remembered Nisa's warning. Don't turn around, not yet. So I just looked ahead of me, looked right at the statue, at its teeth, at the black smudge it had in its pupil. I tried to make sense of the unexplainable. There were spots in my vision, and I found myself passing out and falling into the darkness. A few hours later, the sheriff came in for coffee and apparently saw us passed out on the floor. Wasn't it supposed to be closed, the coffee shop? Oh, okay. Well, maybe it doesn't matter. Passed out on the floor, me by the door, and Mark still under the table. The shop looked perfect, like nothing ever happened. Yet Nisi and Darius were gone, like they just up and left. He tried to explain some of the less fantastical parts, the earthquake, the lights, and asked for the sheriff to do a wellness check on Nisi and Darius. Mark had to shut down the shop for a few days after this. His dad's health took a bad turn, and he let me know he tried to check the security cameras inside the cafe, but they were all down, and the ones outside never caught anything at all. Mark won't tell me what he saw that night. He just wants to forget that this is real. I haven't heard from Nisi or Darius since that day. Well, that was fucking awesome. I think it really built up well. I think there's still a lot to be understood. And I'm still like, did it possess her? Is it not possessing her? You know, the look behind her thing. Don't look behind you. Not yet. I don't know. You know, I don't know if this if this statue angel thing is good or bad. I don't know if all the four, we'll call them, the Nisi, Mark, Darius, and our narrator, which, do we have our narrator's name yet? I don't know. Anyways, I don't know if these four, it seems like some people are having maybe more adverse reactions. None of them slept for 4 days, though, as far as we know. So it does seem like our protagonist, our main character, maybe had the most like direct reaction with the angel, where she could just do nothing but sleep for 4 days, whereas these other people are having these reoccurring dreams where, you know, like maybe theirs are more like premonitions or more like they're gonna have, maybe they have some sort of powers now because of it, where what is her name, Nisi, could like see what was behind her, and so she's maybe like has like some sort of like altered sight or like clairvoyance, whereas our narrator is like was like directly communing with this thing or whatever for the longest amount of time, so maybe she has the power to like resist it or control it. We don't know, right? It leaves a lot more questions. You know, it answers some questions, but it also just like crams a bunch more in at the end, which I think is really fun. I really like this. Yeah, and I like that they just kind of woke up in the coffee shop and it seemed like maybe like it was all in their heads, but then at the same time it's like, well, there were two people there that aren't there now, so what happened to them, you know? It's a very cool story. I think this is like a super good part one. I think it's, you know, it's not too long. It has this nice little mystery at the beginning. You know, we get the sense that like the town is, at least some people in the town are somewhat aware that like something's going on. The police show up to shut it down, but other than that, it's just very like they all just know that they've been having these weird dreams, and they meet up at the coffee shop, and then the angel just, or the statue just fucking finds them, and and it seems like our main character has this almost battle of wills with this statue, where, you know, it wants her to turn, she doesn't want to turn. Maybe at some point she's gonna need to turn, like maybe at some point the time will be right and turning's gonna be what she needs to do. I don't know, you know. Very cool though. I like the concept of this statue, like almost like realistic angel giant thing. Yeah, being like our monster, or sort of our like catalyst, at least in terms of, you know, everything that's gone on in the story. It's a unique idea, and I think it's done in a really like interesting, fun way, where yeah, I think a lot more people would just be like, it's missing, and that's a mystery, and we got to look into the history of it or figure out why it's missing. But it's like, no, it has this immediate effect on everybody who notices that it went missing. And because of that, it's like these people are marked, and they're having like horrible night terrors or horrible dreams, and they're all dreaming of this thing. And it's just very cool. I like the sort of, the like oracle almost nature of it. The fact that they're all having these like shared dreams, and, this premonition kind of driving almost at the heart of like the super, other than the statue just going missing and then them seeing it in all these crazy giant forms. It's like the most supernatural thing that's kind of happened is that they all now are having these shared dreams. And I'm wondering if, some people are, if they all are going to be changed or touched by this, or if just some of them, like our main character, if maybe like if she's gonna have powers, I'm wondering if this is gonna go into like a superpower sort of a thing, where she's gonna maybe have some of the powers of the angel, so to speak, or the statue, and then she's gonna have to choose whether or not to, like kill or help the people who are maybe being succumbed by the darkness. We don't know. Or maybe the statue is the dark evil force. We don't know about that either, really. So I think that it still leaves it open in a really kind of fun way where this statue might just be trying to drive them all crazy and kill them all. We don't know. But yeah, I think this was a home run, Danny. I really enjoyed this. I think I'm kind of just ready to go on to part 2, unless we just want to move on for the day. Let's see how is part 2 the end? Well, it says work in progress, so I don't think it's the end, right? Because I'd almost be curious to wait to read more until there are more parts, you know what I mean? Because yeah, I really do. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think that there's a lot of people who just they do the angel thing, and it's like even in the Delarier invitation or however you say that, like that was a cool rendition of it, but it just seems like every time angels are brought up in the context of horror, it's just like it just plays with the fact that like, well, demons are actually fallen angels, and so whether it's like a sigil or what, anything that can be kind of angelic could also be taken as like, demon-esque. And so it kind of was always in that space where I feel like with this statue and whatever, we're not quite getting that, at least not yet. And it's not so much about the sigils and the way that whatever people get possessed, or maybe that is where it's going, but it just seems all around this very real, because it was a statue, it just seems based on this very real, like, defined creature, statue, whatever thing that was in the town. And I think that that's a fun way to kind of realize a creature or a monster or ethereal being that otherwise would be indescribable, right? But now, because it was this statue, or this statue disappeared, it's like we have this definite thing that we can kind of picture in our heads. We can see the kind of marble anguish face of it, and that that I think grounds it in a kind of fun way where it yeah, it just makes it super interesting and fun. No, it's not, but I'm still writing part 3 along with other things that take place in town. So if you want to read it, you can. Yeah, it does make me super happy that you enjoyed the first part. I did. I think it's great. I think yeah, the only reason I'm even thinking about not reading part 2 right now is just because I want to be able to read, like parts 2 and 3 together maybe, or if, like, let's say if part 3 was the final part, like yeah, I'd want to be able to kind of just do it all in one swoop or in one stream as much as I could. But yeah, I love it. I mean, I think this was so cool, uh and we don't even know for sure it is an angel. Like, we have the name, the Rufus Angelus, and we have the whole statue growing to these monolithic proportions, like a biblically accurate angel is described as being like the size of a planet or whatever. Um, but you know, it could be, there could be a lot of there could be a lot of reasons for that, or it could just be they're envisioning it that way in their minds, but that's only in their minds, and really this being is not so gargantuan, you know what I mean? Very fun, very cool. Yeah, I think this is great. I love that you've got other stuff set in the town too. Like, if that's like the Black Creek Radio and it's just all, within the Black Creek, that's kind of the if but I don't know if Black Creek is the name of the town or if that's just the universe that you're setting, like all these the different stuff that you're writing in. That's super cool. I am uh I am stoked to see where it goes, because this is a very strong start, and I think it's a cool catalyst, right? To just have this statue disappear, it's a cool catalyst for all this supernatural stuff to start happening within a specific area or town, that the story take place in. I think that is kind of like a fun starting point to kind of build your lore out from. It's like everyone remembers the day the statue left and how it changed the town forever, and how the town's never been the same since, or how people have never been the same in the town since, sort of a thing. Like, that is super, that's cool. That's very, very fun. All right, so I think I already pulled it up, didn't I? Oh, maybe okay, yeah. All right. Um. uh, when I close my eyes, I see a room, my living room, snapshots of a moment frozen in time. Nisi to my right, Mark to my left, and Darius on the floor, holding his stomach. Tears streaming down his face in a pool of his own blood. Aside from his choked sobs, everyone is so still, so quiet. When I look over at Nisi, she's looking off at something. I will my body to turn, but I can't make myself move. Like that day at the coffee shop. She's focused. Nothing else exists. I feel a cold breeze flow past me, and then a light tug at my shoulders. My body relaxes for a moment, as if giving me permission to move. I feel myself begin to turn around. Something feels incredibly wrong. Something else is here. I wake up with a loud gasp. It takes a moment to realize where I am, but the unmistakable popcorn ceiling from my bathroom clears up any doubts. The sounds of running water fills my ears as it spills over the bath and onto the tiled floor. I quickly lunge to turn it off. I could feel my stomach beginning to turn again. Another restless night. I took a deep sigh as I got out of the bath. My feet were sinking into cold water, making me regret I hadn't just gone to bed the night before. Thick acid quickly climbs its way up my throat. I tried rushing to the toilet, but missed completely. Last night's dinner and more of that weird goo shot out of my mouth, splattering onto the floor. I hobble my way over to the toilet, laying my head on the cold plastic. My mouth feels dry, and the lump in my throat makes it hard to swallow. Stretching my arm up to the sink, my fingers strain until I find my phone. I quickly tap on this. Oh. I quickly tap on the screen. It's gotten much worse since the last coffee shop meeting. Constant throwing up, wild mood swings, vivid dreams, and the same dream keeps coming back. I'm certain of it. With blurry vision, I typed out, "It's happening again." 30 minutes later, there's a faint knock on my door. Mark stands there with a cup of coffee in hand, his smile quickly fading as he takes in my appearance. He steps in. "By the way, your building smells like shit." Ugh, I know. The guy from upstairs got into some shit with his girl. She wrecked the whole floor. I moved over, letting him in. "Where is it?" His eyes scanned my apartment. "Bathroom," I said, closing the door. "Made it all the way this time. Nice," he said, giving me a thumbs up as he walked over to the bathroom. I groan as I lie down on the couch, feeling sharp pain in my stomach. I tried to take my mind off the knot in my throat. I thought back to that night in the cafe. We agreed, we all did. If anything changed, we'd let each other know. I'm beyond positive. Mark is the only one who kept his word. He's reliable, kind to a fault. That's when it happened. The first time. He was the first person I called a week ago. "Mark? Mark?" My voice came out raspy. "Yeah," he sounds surprised. "Come over?" I can barely speak. "What happened?" "I really can't explain it. Can you just come when you get a chance?" When he got into the apartment, everything was covered in black goo. My stomach was twisting in knots. My hands were throbbing and bruised as I dunked the sponge into the cleaning solution. It did little to nothing as I tried to scrape it off the ground. Everything from my face to my feet was covered in it. I didn't even hear him step inside. "Rowan, what the fuck is that?" I jumped when I heard his voice. I don't know. I can't stop." My lip shakes, scrubbing the floor vigorously. He came closer, bending down slightly. He doesn't say anything for a moment, then quietly, almost as if to himself, "It's moving," he mutters. He leans down to get a closer look. I'd been too busy trying to get rid of the stuff that I hadn't even noticed, but he was right. I watched its movements, slow and sluggish. The goo reached out like tiny little hands, trying to connect with another puddle, then quickly snapped into one big glob. There was this deep magnetic pull that made my stomach bulge out. it's trying to claw its way out, threatening to rip out everything inside in order to escape. I put my hand out trying to grab the bucket, but before I could, I was heaving and retching once more. Thick, thick globs leave my mouth and nose, landing on the floor with heavy thuds. A fiery sensation sticks in my throat as my stomach tries to expel this unknown fluid all at once. Mark backed away for a moment, but kept observing me. When I was done, he reached his arm out to help me up. I grabbed Mark's arm. It just won't stop, I whimpered as I rubbed my throbbing chest. He helps me up and over to the couch. He tells me to lie down, and I do. He walks back over to the goo. He watches silently, as if looking at it for a bit longer is going to give the answers he needs. I lay back on the couch. I was exhausted. I keep my eyes on him as Mark scoops some of it in his fingers. My brows furrow as it hardens for just a second before losing its shape and snapping back down to the puddle. Yeah, this is definitely some sort of black shit, Mark said, holding it up to the light. He then brought it up to his nose and sniffed it. I heard him swallow hard, licking his lips. He shook his head quickly and wiped it off. He looked over and noticed I'd been watching. Let's get you to bed, he said with a smile. Mark stayed the night. He helped put me to bed. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember hearing ever so faintly the sound of slurping coming from the living room. Slurping? So is he eating it? Ugh. The next morning I felt empty and weak. I could barely stand up on my own. I tried my best to make my way over to him. The whole house felt unbelievably cold. Each step sent shiver down my spine. Wake up, dude, I said, sitting next to him. My body throbbed all over. His eyes opened, sitting up quickly before realizing where he was. Neither of us said anything before I decided to break the silence. I want to thank you for staying the night, and thanks for cleaning up. You really didn't have to, especially with your dad and all. His chest began to rise and fall rapidly. His face turned bright red. Can I tell you something? He said quietly, a tense shift from his usually chill personality. Yeah, of course. I tried to give him a smile, but my stomach was starting to turn again. I knew you were going to call me. He turned to me as he spoke. His chin had black stains on it. What? I asked. Oh, he is slurping it up. Gross. I knew you were going to call me. I don't remember much of that night when all the weird shit happened at the cafe. Ever since that night, I don't know. It's just like I can see little snapshots of what's going to happen. His face hardened as he spoke. The moment you called, it's like I lost control of my body. I tried. I really did. I didn't want to come. One moment I was helping my dad with the shop. Then you called. The next thing I know, I'm here. He took a deep sigh and walked to the kitchen. I watch as he grabs a cup of water, taking big, loud gulps. When you opened the door, you looked so frail. It reminded me of my dad on his bad days, you know. Couldn't leave you like that. He paused for a moment. After I put you to bed, I swear I was just going to clean up a bit. Make sure you don't have to overwork yourself. I couldn't control myself. It was calling to me. I mean, literally reaching out to me. I drank it all. His hand tightened around the cup. He looked at me, barely meeting my eyes. You ate whatever that shit was? I couldn't believe it either. I couldn't stop, he said. Uh, hmm. He said, I don't know what this means, like present. If that means that there's a time jump, maybe. I don't know. You have to call them, I shouted from my room. They're your friends, I shrugged, changing out of my goo-stained clothes. I don't get why you're so weird to them. They're good people, Mark said. I don't doubt that. Easy was acting super weird that night, aside from everything else that happened, and not to mention, where the fuck did they go after that? They just fucking left us. He raised his brows at me. I shrugged. I don't care, man. I said what I said. He rolled his eyes at me as he put the phone up to his ear. After a few missed calls and much convincing, Nisi and Darius sat in my living room. They listened as we told them everything. Darius tried but failed to keep a straight face as Mark explained what's been going on. After we finished, they just sat there. Minutes passed. I felt myself getting annoyed. Any thoughts, comments, concerns, maybe? I said. I mean, that really sucks, guys. Well, what can we do to help? We've got our own shit going on, Darius responded. I'm looking over at Mark. See, I told you they'd be no help. It's okay, Rowan. If they don't want to talk about it, it's cool, Mark said, looking over at them. Nisi once again looks off into the distance. I just don't understand why y'all won't be up front with us. Y'all left us alone after what happened at the coffee shop. And we tried to... What the fuck do you keep looking at? I said as I turned around to see what Nisi was looking at. Nisi's arm shot out to grab mine with a tight grip. No, not yet. I can't tell you. I mean, if I could, but I literally can't. For the first time since I've met her, she looked at me. Nisi, none of what's been going on makes sense. Please just tell us. I said, bending down and meeting her eyes. She nodded, but her eyes drifted away, back to the corner of the living room, like she was looking for something. I think we'll find out sooner than you think, she said, still gripping my arm tightly. She blinked for a moment, snatching her hand back. When she opened her eyes back up, in them I saw a reflection, not of me, something pale white, too massive to fit in her eyes, much less my apartment. I gasped, backing away from her. In that moment, the air became fuzzy, thick, like when you would rub your hand on an old TV. Almost everything became silent all at once. No sounds of cars passing, no buzzing lights, not even my own breathing. I became acutely aware of everything around me. Everything felt too real, too high definition. Just like the night at the cafe, everything around me felt like it was shaking. The hairs on my arm began to stand, and I had this feeling in the pit of my chest that we were in danger, but I couldn't tell why. My head snapped over to the wall as the familiar ringing of my clock began to chime. I was confused. It wasn't even 12 yet. The clock read 11:44. Wordlessly, Darius and Mark got up at the same time as they made their way behind the couch. Their reflections barely reflected on the large window that faced outside. I tried to track their movements as they moved behind me, but my head remained fixed in place. I felt a cold pressure on either side of my face. No matter how hard I tried to move, my eyes were the only things I felt I could control. Mark and Darius left my line of sight. The thumping of footsteps came to an immediate halt. The chime from the clock seemed to get louder with each passing moment. Nisi got up. No, she was lifted up. Her body was stiff. Her head was wobbling like a newborn baby. Her feet didn't move. They dragged across the floor. She practically floated into the kitchen and out of my view. I heard some shuffling, the sound of a drawer opening and closing. Nobody said anything. I don't think anyone could. We all stood like pieces on a chessboard. My heart began to pound in my chest. I heard the sound of Nisi's feet dragging, coming closer. When she came back into view, she floated for a moment, and she was then placed flat on her feet. I felt pressure on my shoulder, like the night at the cafe, cold and unfamiliar. The chiming of the clock felt almost melodic. Her eyes darted next to her. I watched as the skin of her cheek pressed down, like someone was whispering in her ear. Her eyes widened and became distant. She begrudgingly walks behind me as well. If I squinted, I could slightly see their reflections. Mark to my left, Nisi to my right, Darius stood in the middle. But as I squint, I noticed there was another figure that stood behind him, pale, white, and rapidly growing in size. My heart sank as white wings seemed to expand behind him. Once again, the missing statue watched over us. The sound of rocks scraping on itself echoed loudly over the clock's unrelenting chimes as it looked over at Nisi. I hear her make a low whimper. She tightly shuts her eyes. Her body leans forward like someone is pushing her from behind. For some reason, I can distinctly feel the pressure on my back and the weight of something in my hand. With a hard shove, she takes a step forward. My body unintentionally lunges forward, and I can feel my feet moving. She stands beside Darius, but he doesn't seem to notice she's next to him. I could hear sniffling. Who it came from, I don't know. I felt something grab hold of my hand and lift it up. I moved my eyes down, and my hands still firmly by my side. When I looked up, I see Nisi's reflection, arm raised high above her head, knife in hand, glinting in the apartment light. I shut my eyes. Tight. The sound of a knife piercing skin was all I could hear. Loud gasps and grunts sounded off from behind me, and something wet began to hit the floor. And even though I didn't see any of it, I could feel it all. The cold handle was warming up in my hand with every thrust, how the knife pierced through his skin, the warmth of blood spilling into my hand over and over again until a heavy thud, gurgles, and the sound of strained breathing were the first human sounds I'd heard in what felt like hours. To my left, I heard gagging, loud, aggressive heaving, and wet splatter. I hit the ground. The sound of rock grinding on itself sounded off once more, and I felt invisible arms lift me up off the couch. I squeezed my eyes tightly. My feet dragged across the floor until we finally stopped. When I opened my eyes, I stood over him. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't open my mouth. My eyes took in a grotesque sight of Darius on the ground, blood sinking into my brand new carpet, hands tightly holding his hands. We just have two tightlies right here. Hands holding his stomach tightly, trying to stop the blood. Tears rushed down his face. Mark grabbed the knife away from Nisi, and before I could try to stop him, he slit his palm and held it over Darius's body. He slid his palm and held it over Darius's body. Dark gray powder spilled out from his cut, covering him. At the same time, my stomach began to twist and turn. I clutched my hands over my mouth, but the viscous black goo explodes like a hose, shooting all over his body. The goo begins to mix in with the dust like an ungodly concoction. They begin to reach out to one another as it clings to his body. Over and over I retch until my throat is burning. The goo begins to dig deep into Darius, slithering its way into his body almost like it was alive, squelching and popping accompany it until it's all gone. I stop vomiting, and instead of ash, blood drops from Mark's hand, hitting Darius's barely conscious face. His skin began to stretch and move on its own. Little lumps made waves under it. I leaned closer, trying to get a better look before the stinging pain came. I screamed in pain as the black gushed from my arm. I looked over at Mark, the knife in his hand, covered in black. He looked at Nisi, telling her to come over to him. Nisi is now once again able to move on her own to try to run away, but Mark quickly grabs her by her braids and digging the knife into her arm. Her arm swells. She screams as their blood begins to converge into a black goo, spilling out of mine. The air around me began to feel like static. I felt lightheaded and dizzy. The blood pooled into him the same way as before, snaking and popping its way inside. It was a small speck at first, but like oil and soap, it quickly started to overtake his skin, small veins of white racing over each other to cover every bit of skin. His fingers stop twitching, his chest stops moving, his eyes lose their light as they stay frozen and wide, hands still clutching his stomach. In that moment, the heaviness in the air lifted. The ringing of the clock stopped mid-chime. The weight was taken off our shoulders, but none of us felt any better. Nisi threw herself on the floor. Her hands and jeans were covered in the leftover residue. She reached out to touch his fingertips, barely skimming his body before she yanked them back. "No, no, no, please, Darius," she said, crying. She reached out to him again. Mark and I looked at each other, not sure of what to say. She looked up at us, her skin becoming pale from the blood loss. "He's made of stone," she sobbed, her bloody hand caressing his face, leaving bright red stains. I felt lightheaded, barely able to focus on what she was saying. Too much was running through my head. I looked over at Mark. He looked sick, his hand still bleeding. I reached out to Darius myself, dry, hard stone, stiff, but still warm to the touch. We stood there frozen, unsure of what to do. No more clock chimes, no more choked gasps. None of that black shit was to be found. Just three of us and a memorial of a once loved man's last moments. That was fucking crazy. And to say I wasn't worried that part 2 couldn't top part 1, but I was very much like, oh, like in part 1 there's kind of this crazy crescendo, right? And then I was like, and I bet part 2 is gonna kind of maybe take a step back into reality, or maybe take a step like, I don't know, build more of the backstory. I thought I thought part 2 was gonna be primarily like what happened to Darius and Neely, and why did they leave them, and what's the difference between her and Mark and Darius and Neely and their communion with this being, right? With this statue. Like, what are they fighting it? Is that why? But then no, it seems like Neely knows something about, like, you're not supposed to look at the creature, so like, what are they, do they know something that maybe they just can't tell, like Mark, because Mark is possessed, or they can't tell Rowan because she's like the one who whatever was chosen by this god, by this thing. And so that's where I kind of thought it was going. And it did have some of that, to be sure. But I think what this part did was it did a few things very, very well. But number one, I think to have Mark eat the black goo is like genius. I think just from a horror perspective, I think we see that a lot, right? Like somebody gets possessed or affected by like some demon or some deity, right? And they like start puking black goo, or there's this sense that like there's something wrong inside them and it's trying to get out. And we got a version of that with Rowan and stuff, but then it's like to have Mark eat it and just to see the leftover goo caked on his face is just so disgusting. And then to have them all basically unwillingly kind of perform this ritual at the end where it seems like they turned Darius into a statue, or maybe a living, or maybe a dead. I don't know, because it says he's still warm to the touch, so maybe that's just because he is like dead and he's just going to be this dead statue thing. Or if it seems like they almost, like this being that the statue initially is almost like recruiting, right? And he like wants like soldiers, and whether or not they want to make them or become them or whatever, he was like, oh, it's time. And it sounds like, I mean, our Rowan knew it, right, from her dream, at least somewhat. She knew something was going to happen when they all four got together. It sounds like Neely knew it. Maybe even Mark knew it, because he's been getting flashes, he says, of the future. So it seems like they're all just kind of, they came together, not so much, like, yes, they wanted answers and they wanted to talk it over, but they all just kind of knew that like they couldn't fight fate, and whatever was going to happen when they were all together again. And yeah, and so that's just kind of what it was. I'm still very curious to know, like, was Darius the evil one? Because he was kind of the one who was like never saying anything. Like, at least the girl Neely was zoning off, but then being like, don't look. Darius, it just seemed like kind of the whole time was just like, so maybe he was kind of like standing in the way of something, or maybe he was taken over by some evil force, and so they had to like sacrifice him and make him into this statue thing. I don't know. I'm still I don't know if I've ever been so on the fence about, like, it's clear what like the monster is in this story. It's the statue, and now we have this Darius getting killed and becoming a statue himself. So it's clear that like that's the monster. I guess I just don't fully, I mean, it seems somewhat evil. Like, this ritual definitely seemed fucked up and evil, but then it also seems so weird that like none of them fight it or even try to fight it, or I don't know. Like, it still is kind of leaving, I think, at least the possibility open that maybe this all was just meant to happen, and it's if it's not so much a good entity, the statue, at least all of this is like preordained, destiny sort of a thing. I don't know. But I'm very, very curious to see where this series goes, the other parts that take place in the same town. I'm very curious, and particularly like, what is Rowan's place and what is the angel's place in this town? Is the angel a force for good or evil, or maybe both? As we've kind of seen, it seems like within the context of the story so far, it seems like he disappeared so that he could kind of join the statue. I'm speaking about the statue now as if it's a character, because it kind of is to me. It seemed like the statue kind of was like sleeping as a statue, and then it kind of disappeared and took its like ethereal place amongst the town, or the people of the town, and now it's sort of preparing or changing the people of the town according to its will, or what needs to happen. Now, do we know what it's what that's for, what its will does? We have no idea, but I'm very, very fucking curious, very intrigued. Yeah, that was great, Danny. I don't know if you're still here, but like, I'm super duper stoked on this. I think you need to just keep writing, and I think, don't be scared to just follow like your instincts with the series, because I think it's been great so far, and I think like, take it where you want to take it. If the statue's evil and I'm wrong, that's totally fine. I think it's just written in such a cool way where I'm not fully bought into like the maleficence or the malice of this creature. Like, maybe it is just a demon devil, just in a different sort of a way. And if case, that's really cool. But if if it's something else, then that's cool too. And I'm just curious to see what else is going on in this town now. I really want to know, and I want to kind of dive deeper into, just the other parts or the other stories where we have this character, right? This Deputy Caputo. I don't remember that off the top of my head, what that other story was that he was in. But yeah, I like it. I'm here for it. I am super duper stoked on it. I'm gonna go to the restroom real quick. We can certainly get into Mr. Americana after. I don't know if you're still here, Harvey. But either way, yeah, thank you. I mean, shout out to Danny, everyone. Go show Danny, Danny from Black Creek, or on DaniWitDaVibez on Reddit. Show them some love. Give them a follow, please. Oh, I thought I already followed you. Sorry, Danny. I didn't even follow you. Just goes to show, with writers and people that you're whose work you're interested in, click on their profile. Put a comment on their story. Put a comment on their page, or just on their on their where writers have these posts where they're like, these are all my stories or whatever. Like, find a way to kind of show those posts some loves too, so that maybe more people can see them, and can read the cool stories that you've read. And yeah, I think just ultimately, like, this is great, and I can't wait to read more. Yeah, and I'm also really curious to learn more about Rufus Angelus or whatever. Like what is the story behind this statue that isn't being told, right? That has sort maybe led to all this, or maybe not led to it, but like what are some other pieces of the lore that can be expanded on? I'm super curious. Yeah, I mean, this was awesome. This was super fun, and I liked like the ritual. I think I maybe do want to like even read that ritual part again just to make sure I fully understood everything going on. But I love like the imagery of the black goo being like covered over Marius, and then like the fucking him cutting his hand mark, and then like this ash covering too, and it like mixing into stone. I think that that's such a sweet visual. Oh god, it just, yeah, it really, something about this story, I don't know, it's like it was just the it was just kind of the dose I needed, or it was just kind of from where I thought a missing statue in town was going to go, and then it just kind of took it in a really fun, entertaining, like crazy ass direction. You know what I mean? Um, Very cool, very killer. Like I would say, killer, killer story in the works here from Danny. I think they've definitely got a winner here. And so yeah, I want to see more people, comment, uh, subscribe, follow, uh, authors. When you dig their stuff. You have strength in visuals, and I think you really dialed in on that more here. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the visuals, at least with the goo and like the ash, really stuck out strongly in this one. Um, yeah, I'm just so curious to know more. I mean, I was reading the other comments there just to see what other people had to say. Um, what a banger! Congratulations to you, Danny, because this is very cool, and I could see this being, I'll say it like just here now, so it's on the record. I could see this being a very great, cool creepcast episode, but also I would just encourage you to, like I said, just follow your instincts and expand this story on your own time. You don't have to rush anything out by any means, but I think it's a really cool concept, and I think you've taken it in a really like cool direction, and I'm just very curious to see what else is going on in this town, and how these three or these four, because we don't know for sure that Marius is dead. Maybe he's some otherworldly being now. Maybe that's what the ritual did. So I'm just really curious to see what these three or four um characters, how they evolve, what they get up to. Is Darius now like a servant of this giant statue, and he's like a soldier, or maybe this being's gonna fight some sort of celestial supernatural war, and now Darius is gonna be kind of in that, and they're gonna have to like help him, um unless they want to be turned to stone too or something. I don't know. My mind is running in all sorts of different directions, and that's just the sign of a really cool, you know, beginning start of a story, is that, it kind of reminds me of, I know maybe it's not adventure horror like Left Right Game is, but it kind of reminds me of how I felt at the beginning of Left Right Game. Like once I kind of understood the rules of like, okay, they're on the road. The road is not in reality anymore. It's sort of in this other parallel dimension sort of a thing. And they don't need to eat, and their energy continues to propel them further down the road, but the road fights back and wants to stop them the whole way. Kind of as soon as I like understand that, like, or understood that maybe after the hitchhiker, and like maybe after the first guy dies or whatever and gets like strung up by on that truck or whatever that part of the story is, I kind of felt like, oh God, I just love this story because I feel like it can go anywhere. I feel like it could touch anything. It could dip into any mythology, right? And that's kind of how I am feeling about this. So shout out to you, Danny. Yeah, you certainly should feel proud and like super accomplished. I don't know, because I know it's not a finished story, so I don't want to be like, I don't want to speak in such a way that makes you go like, oh yeah, like because I want more, I guess is what I'm getting at, so. But I'll give you all your flowers now. I mean, it's a great, even if you didn't write anymore, I think it's a great part 1 and part 2. I do think that it needs to be completed though. But yeah, and I think you can expand this idea as much as you want to. I really see it having that sort of legs where it could kind of be, they could be this ethereal, they could have to be like this team of ethereal sort of townspeople now, at least with the 3 with Mark, Rowan, and DC, where they're helping this angel to fight this like ethereal battle or something like that, or they're gonna have to figure out some sort of a way to where they can somehow break this control that if the statue is evil that it has over them, or how do they navigate this new town that all this supernatural shit is happening in, and where's their place in it? Because they noticed the angel was missing. Does that mean they have to be on the side of whatever this statue is on? I keep calling it the angel because that's how I'm thinking of it. I realize it could be a million different things. So yeah, I just it's awesome. It's great. There's little typos, and I think even Boots mentioned some stuff with like the tenses kind of shifting and stuff. But I mean, you can edit posts, I think, right? Like, and so there's no reason that you can't edit or revise this as you continue to post more of it. I would just encourage you to keep writing, but then I think as you just write more too, shit gets easier too. So I wouldn't worry too much about the little typos here and there. But yeah, fix them. I think it's always good to focus on how you can be better. Because I think the story and the themes and the stuff are really those. I don't think you can improve on that much. I think you can build them out and you can define them more and stuff, and the rules and of this world and all sorts of stuff like that. But I think that just comes with more parts of the story. But little things here and there, like I said, like, oh, I think you need a comma here or whatever, just little stuff like that. It's like, by all means, clean it up, because then it's only going to become more fun for people to read in the future. So yeah, and people will still be reading these even if the series goes on to parts 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. It's like people will still need to read part 1 and 2. So there's no reason that you can't like improve upon those or alter things slightly in ways that make your story read better, But yeah, overall, just killer job. Can't say it enough. Continuously floored by the talent and the creativity of the CREEPCAST community and the the just the people in it and around it, and yes, we're all fans or whatever. We all started out as fans, but it's very clear to me that we have some beyond talented authors in this community. Super super awesome to see. But sorry, I said I was gonna go to the bathroom, so I'm going to do that. I did not lie. Here, let's play Urban Spook.
Or like, someone will relate to it.
Sure.
You kind of have, I think it's responsible to ask yourself, like, does this need to be in here? And sometimes the answer is yes, right? Like, sometimes this is what your story's about. This is part of the theme. Go for it. Especially when it comes to like lost loved ones or something like that. Some stories definitely need that. But sometimes people add them because they know it's a provocative topic, and that's kind of exploitative, I think.
Well, I think it is exploitative, and I think that regardless if they know it or not, sometimes I think it's strictly, it's fetishizing something horrible.
Yes, yeah.
Which is why some of these movies and some of these things feel so like abrupt. Like I could see why people find like Tommy Taffy or something like that, where it's like these like very hard subjects and stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's just, is it being provocative to add anything that's like, even like emotional, like baggage that people carry from these kinds of things? Or is it just there because it's like, wouldn't that be fucked? And I think that's always the wrong way to go.
Yeah. Something funny, Hunter. These are photos.
These are photographs.
People. And this is fun. This is a photograph, Hunter, and this is funny to you.
Lastly, there was a fourth photo depicting an unknown face.
Just switches back.
So wait, hold on. So lastly, there was a picture depicting an unknown face.
All right,
whose fucking face is this supposed to be?
We need to recap, right? There were 4 people in the Collins family, right? One of them was Long-Necked Angel, okay?
Right.
We've already seen her painting. So now there's 3 more photos of the dead that was found, because they found her body, the baby.
Yeah, so they're saying that
the
these
3
are like
others,
weird,
these are the
twisted,
3
demented
others
photos of the family.
That were shoved in there. But there's a 4th picture that no one knows where it came from.
Looks like the picture looks like the painting of the red woman.
What? No.
Looks like it to me.
This? What are you talking about? Whoa, that's crazy.
Oh.
All right. So, how do you feel about the second one?
It's okay.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, the names that were mentioned whenever they're running through, and it's a little strange to me how it's like, we have a murder investigation, and there was a child that died. She was only 2 months old. And then we go to like, the family's car was found, and the police go into a lighthouse, and inside of the lighthouse there are 3 other bodies completely unrelated to this case. Now, those other bodies are actually mentioned in the first video, like you can see in the
all right. So here's the plan, because I'm changing my mind. I was going to get into Mr. Americana, but I think I'm going to end my stream here because we had a great story and that was super fun. But I think next stream, I'm going to just, it's going to be my 51. I think maybe for both my 51st and 52nd stream, so meaning the next 2 streams, I might just be focusing entirely on Mr. Americana. And so I think it's fair if I just stick to the first 2 parts of the story that I read for this stream, and then next stream we just dedicate it entirely, and maybe the next 2 streams to Mr. Americana, because I have been wanting to get back into this story, to catch up on this story. I never stopped being into it, but yeah, I really just kind of want to dive deep back in, and having a stream entirely dedicated to it will allow me to do that. So shout out to everybody who stopped by or who watched this stream after the fact. I really hope you enjoyed the story. Sorry I didn't read more stories, but the fact of the matter is it's late and I'm hungry and I've already been streaming for a while. So, yeah, it is what it is. We are going to get into Mr. Americana, and we're going to start on part 42, but we've got, he's written up to 58. You know, so Harvey's been cooking while we've been away. And if you know me, you know how much I love this story thus far. How interesting it is, how I love the different narratives coalescing and you know, continuing as it goes on. Some end, some begin, you know. It's got so much to it that I really I don't see why we can't just do it all. And for my 51st and my 52nd stream, I mean, that's going to be me streaming for almost a year consistently, and I can't think of any better way to do it than to maybe just, you know, get fully caught up on this story or just read a bunch more of it, right? That sounds really fun to me, and yeah, that's just what I'm gonna do. So thank you all so much. I I appreciate you. Also, I wanted to shout out this other analog horror. It's called, is it, fuck, I gotta pull it up. I was just messaging the creator because I hope I'm gonna be able to watch it on stream, but I wanted to shout out it regardless. Yeah, Remloom. I don't know if it's like a specifically from TikTok or if it's, but it's kind of newer and it's currently going on. And I watched part 1 and I was certainly intrigued. So this is the channel and their, you know, analog horror animator creator. It's got a typical kind of analog horror aesthetic from what you've seen on some of the other like Mandela catalog or other type videos. But I also think it's got, from what I've understood of the story and the concepts behind it, it does seem kind of interesting and unique. And yeah, it's kind of a smaller channel, you know, only 300 subscribers, but I think from what I've seen so far, it's well done and it's very cool. And I would like to, yeah, just check it out. So I wanted to give it a shout out, tell people to go watch it. So Lethray is the channel, and I believe the series is called, or people so far have just been calling it Remloom. Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting. You know, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, so I'll just say if we get to watch it on stream in the future, cool. If not, go check it out. And that is just the other thing that I wanted to say before I call it a night, because I'm getting sleepy and I'm hungry. So adios, amigos. I appreciate everybody. Harvey, Danny, thank you guys for chilling. Colin Kell, appreciate you. Peace out, everybody.